Daily Words of God. Have you now become aware of the greatest difference between God and mankind? Ultimately, who is the master of all things? Is it man?
No.
Then what is the difference between how God and humans treat all creation?
God rules over and arranges all things while man enjoys them.
Do you agree with this? The greatest difference between God and mankind is that God rules over and provides for all creation. He is the source of everything. And while God provides for all creation, mankind enjoys it. That is to say, man enjoys all the things of creation when he accepts the life that God bestows on all things. God is the master, and mankind enjoys the fruits of God's creation of all things. What, then, from the perspective of all the things of God's creation, is the difference between God and mankind? God can see clearly the laws of how all things grow, and He controls and dominates these laws. That is, all things are within God's sight and within the scope of His scrutiny. Can mankind see all things? What mankind can see is limited to what is directly in front of them. If you climb a mountain, then what you see is just that mountain. You cannot see what is on the other side of the mountain. If you go to the shore, then what you see is just one side of the ocean, and you cannot know what the other side of the ocean is like. If you go into a forest, you can see the vegetation in front of you and around you, but you cannot see what lies farther ahead. Humans cannot see places that are higher, farther, deeper. All that they can see is what is directly in front of them, within their field of vision. Even if humans know the law that dictates the 4 seasons of the year, or the laws of how all things grow, they are still unable to manage or dictate all things. Yet the way God sees all of creation is just as He would see a machine that He built Himself. He is deeply familiar with every component and every connection, what their principles are, what their patterns are, and what their purposes are. God knows all of this with the highest degree of clarity. Hence, God is God, and man is man. Though man may go deep in his research of science and the laws that govern all things, that research is limited in scope, whereas God controls everything. For man, God's control is infinite. A man could spend his entire life researching God's smallest deed without achieving any true results. This is why, if you use just knowledge and what you have learned to study God, you will never be able to know God or understand Him. But if you choose the way of seeking the truth and seeking God, and look at God from the perspective of coming to know Him, then one day you will recognize that God's actions and wisdom are everywhere at once. And you will know why God is called the master of all things and the source of life for all things. The more you gain such understanding, the more you will understand why God is called the master of all things. All things and everything, including you, are constantly receiving the steady flow of God's provision. You will also be able to clearly sense that in this world, and among this mankind, there is no one apart from God who could have the ability and the essence with which He rules over, manages, and maintains the existence of all things. When you arrive at this understanding, you will truly recognize that God is your God. When you reach this point, you will have truly accepted God and allowed Him to be your God and your Master. When you have obtained such an understanding and your life has reached such a point, God will no longer test you and judge you, nor will He make any demands of you, because you will understand God, will know His heart, and will have truly accepted God in your heart. This is an important reason to fellowship on these topics of God's domination and management of all things. Doing so is meant to give people more knowledge and understanding, not merely to have you acknowledge, but to have you know and understand God's actions in a more practical way.